Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the all-new AOKZOE A1 Pro. Now this was just launched on Indiegogo. I'll leave a link in the description, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, what makes this a Pro over the original A1? And it comes down to the new Ryzen 7000 series Phoenix Point APU they chose to use in this unit. It's actually got the Ryzen 7840U, so we've got Zen 4 cores and RDNA 3 graphics. Overall, this thing offers some amazing performance, and it's definitely a nice bump up from the 7800U. And when it comes to the overall design of the handheld itself, they haven't deviated much from the original design. We've still got that 8-inch IPS display at 1920 by 1200. Dual front-facing stereo speakers, plus we've got that RGB up front. Around back, we've still got that kickstand. This does make it really nice to use it in kind of a desktop mode when you got a controller connected to it over Bluetooth. Now, one of the main things that I personally didn't like that much about the original AOKZOE was the D-pad, given that it's not a separated design, and they still haven't gone with the separated design here. The internals have gotten a little better. It is using conductive pads, but it would have been really nice to have just a different setup here, or at least a swappable setup. This is still using those Hall-based analog sticks, so we don't have to worry about drift or anything down the road. And when it comes to the overall controller layout, this is a design that I'm really used to. Over here on the left-hand side, we've got our analog stick D-pad. We've also got our select button up top, and we've got a kind of dedicated home button. No matter where you are, you press this, it'll bring you right back to the desktop. Moving over to the right-hand side, we've got our ABXY, that other Hall-based analog stick, and our start button. And you'll see we've got two extra buttons down near the bottom. The upper button is our keyboard button. No matter where we are in the operating system, we press this once, it'll bring up an on-screen keyboard, or we can hold it for 3 seconds and it'll swap the built-in controls into mouse mode. That way we can navigate the whole operating system with a cursor just using our analog stick and buttons. Below that, we've got our turbo button, and this will take it up to 28 watts. It'll also up that fan speed, or it'll bring up the on-screen AOKZOE control panel. And we'll take a look at that. We can control the TDP, fan, brightness, the RGB on the front. Pretty cool little interface. And of course, we've got our shoulder buttons and our triggers. I've always been a big fan of these triggers. We've got a lot of throw to them, and they are fully linear. When it comes to I/O, on the bottom here, we do have a micro SD card slot and USB 4. We can connect an eGPU to this if we want to. And moving around to the top, you'll see we've got a lot going on here. We've got a full-size USB 3.2 port, another USB-C, this is only 3.2, a 3.5mm audio jack, our volume rocker, and our power button. And when it comes to the full specs, like I mentioned, this is powered by the brand new AMD Ryzen 7840U. It's based on Zen 4. We've got 8 cores, 16 threads, a base clock of 3.3 GHz, and a boost up to 5.1. Built-in Radeon 780M graphics. These are based on RDNA 3. We've got 12 CUs, and they will clock up to 2700 MHz. When it comes to RAM, AOKZOE actually did away with the 16GB model. 32 is the base now, but they've kept that same price, but you could also opt to get up to 64 GB with this unit, and it utilizes LPDDR5 running at 6400 megatransfers per second. Storage is handled by a PCIe 4.0 2280 M.2 NVMe, and you can get in here and swap it out. You can opt for either 1 or 2 terabytes of storage with this unit. We've got that 8-inch 1920 by 1200 display. It's 100% sRGB. Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.2, it's got a 6-axis gyro plus dual vibration motors, a 65 watt-hour battery, and out of the box this is going to be running Windows 11, but you could always install Linux if you wanted to. I've been using the AOKZOE devices since the launch of the first A1, and overall I do like the design. Feels good in the hand, everything's easily accessible, and that 8-inch screen looks really good. I love having this larger display. Taking a look at these function buttons, as you can see, tapping it once will bring up that keyboard. Holding it for 3 seconds will enable mouse mode. Now we can navigate the operating system using our cursor on screen with just the analog stick. Hold it for another 3 seconds, it'll disable it, go back to controller mode. And like I mentioned, we've got this turbo button. So I've got the AOKZOE control panel installed, and from here we can change the TDP, CPU max status, fan speed, vibration setting, brightness, volume, and we can control the RGB from right here. So we can change this up at any time. But they also have their new game launcher that 1xPlayer and AOKZOE have been experimenting with. Holding the turbo button for about 3 seconds will bring this up. It'll automatically scan all of the default directories that your games are usually stored in, and it'll bring your games right up. It'll also scrape the artwork for us. We can launch them directly from the game launcher. We can bring this up at any time just by holding that turbo button for about 3 seconds, but remember, you need the software installed on the device. Now I'm really excited to show you the performance here, but I also wanted to show you these linear triggers. I've got Dirt 5 right now at 1200p. We're at low settings, 15 watts starting out. We can take it up at any time using that control panel. Just give you a look here. Not bad. I mean, we're right there on the edge of 60. We definitely need a little more wattage thrown at this APU to get over 60 with it. But we can go anywhere from 4 watts up to 28 using the AOKZOE control panel. And of course, at 28 watts, your battery life will suffer compared to 15 watts. But it might be worth it for a lot of these games because it's a pretty big jump when you go from 15 to 28 on these Phoenix Point APUs. So just bring it up. Go ahead and take this up to 28 watts. Got to give it a few seconds to register, but if you take a look at Afterburner, you'll see that go right up. And now with the TDP set at 28 watts, we can get an average of around 76 FPS with this game. Remember, at 15 watts, we were right there on the edge. We got an average of 59 with it, but at 28, we're well over 60. And keep in mind, we've got a 65 watt-hour battery here. Even at 28 watts, we can get close to 2 hours of gameplay out of this unit. Next thing I did was run some benchmarks, and remember, all of these benchmarks are run at 28 watts. First up, we've got Geekbench 6 coming in with an impressive single-core score of 2,365. Multi right there at 10,016. I mean, this is really awesome for a mobile chip. I also ran some GPU benchmarks with 3D Mark. First up, we've got Night Raid with 27,142. Firestrike, 6,935. And finally, Time Spy with a 3041. At 28 watts with 6400 MHz RAM, these are some really good scores. I mean, across the board with these synthetics, but this is really touted as a gaming handheld, so we need to test out some more real-world gaming. Genshin Impact 1200p with a high-medium mix, and remember, we're only at 15 watts. If you take a look at Afterburner, you'll see that CPU package power, and definitely keep an eye on this. Right there at 15 watts, we're good with that high-medium at 60 FPS, and if you wanted to run this at totally high settings, 23 watts is a sweet spot for this game. It's been a while since I've played WarFrame, and I forgot how good this game is. We're at 1200p with a low-medium mix here, and we're getting well over 100 FPS on average. This is really great. I know it's an older game, but it's still a lot of fun to play. I've always got people asking about this, so I figured I'd go ahead and throw it in. Fallout 4, 1200p, medium settings at 15 watts. I do have a few mods enabled, nothing graphical, but I just wanted to mention that. And yeah, I think he's done for. 60 FPS at 15 watts with this one is awesome. I mean, it feels really great on this handheld. Very surprised by the performance. GTA5 is one of those games that performs amazingly on these Phoenix Point APUs. 1200p, normal settings, 15 watts. We're over 80 FPS on average, and at 28 watts, we can go up to high settings here, lock it at 60, and just play it all day long. Of course, we had to test out Cyberpunk 2077, so here it is at 1200p, low settings, and right now we're at 15 watts. We will take this up in just a second. But I mean, we're really close at 15 watts to 60 FPS. Of course, everything we took a look at does 800p really well at these same settings at 15 watts, but let's take it up to 28. And now we can run this over 60 FPS. We're getting an average of around 67 FPS with Cyberpunk 2077, 1200p low at 28 watts on this device. And the final PC game we're going to be testing, at least for this video, is Spiderman Remastered 1200p low settings at 28 watts. This is one of those games that struggles on APUs, and you know, it's really hit or miss. I've had times where I start the game up, bad performance, totally reboot the system, go right back into the game, same exact settings and everything, and get a nice increase in performance. So again, it's really hit or miss with this one, but we are over 60 at 28 watts with Spiderman Remastered. So when it comes to my first impressions of the new AOKZOE A1 Pro, I like the device. I've been a big fan of the AOKZOE design for a while now, since it released with the A1, but now we've got a more powerful system here. Rockin' Zen 4 cores and RDNA 3 graphics is really awesome. Would have been nice to see faster RAM in this unit. They're only using that 6400. If they would have went with 7500, we definitely would have seen better performance, even at those lower TDPs. But you got to keep in mind that they did away with the 16GB model. They kept the 32GB model the same price over on the Indiegogo. So you are getting more RAM here. And it's totally usable. I mean, this is a great performing device, and these Phoenix Point APUs are amazing. I do need to spend some more time with the device. I will have a couple more videos coming up. We're definitely going to test out emulation across the board, but I kind of want to set up my own power profiles here, and I know what they've got with the AOKZOE control panel is great up to 28 watts. But I think, if we could get a static clock on the GPU, maybe even limit the CPU's clock just to get a little more to that iGPU, we could definitely see better performance across the board. So keep an eye out for that video. But that's going to wrap it up for my first look at the AOKZOE A1 Pro. If you're interested in learning more, they do have their Indiegogo right now. I'll leave a link in the description. And let me know in the comments below anything else you want to see running on this. Like I mentioned, emulation, we're going across the board with that. But if there's more PC games that I didn't test in this video, let me know and I'll put them in the next one. If you're into videos like this, it'd be really cool if you could hit that subscribe button and think about turning notifications on. But that's it for this one. And like always, thanks for watching.